Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lastia Cahoot and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? My name is Lastia, and once again, as always, I'm here with my co-host, Glenn.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
And we have another super special guest today that I'm really excited to get into some juicy conversation with. So in order to introduce our guest, here is just a few little nuggets pulled from her amazing bio of this incredibly life well lived so far that just, well, you know what? I'm just going to pluck some of these ideas or some of these things from here because there's so much in here. I am just amazed at the life she has lived so far. So our guest today is an internationally recognized writer, coach, keynote speaker, and consultant. She is the co-author of the career fitness program, Exercising Your Options, 11th edition. It is the most widely used text internationally in colleges and universities in that subject area. She is also, and I love this, a self-proclaimed leisurologist. How amazing does that sound? She is an avid world traveler, is a freelance food, wine, and lifestyle writer, and she and her partner are the co-founders and chief contributors to foodandwineaccess.com. She says she has never met a stranger. That is such a lovely concept. And she considers herself a global hostess, making it a point to extend the spirit of inclusive hospitality wherever she goes. She is originally from a small town near Buffalo, New York. She also spent some time in France when she was at the University of Nice. And she writes here in her bio that she lived with a family with 11 children who were hobnobbing with Princess Grace and Prince Rainier. And that at one point she was courted by Jacques Cousteau. She also took dance classes with Martha Graham at the age of 22 and became a house mother at a small women's college in New York City. She moved to LA to be with the love of her life. And one of the most significant things in her life that seems to be a pivotal point was as a caseworker at Penny Lane, a residential treatment center for delinquent adolescent girls, where she supported teens in gaining a sense of worth, dignity, and purpose through work. Now, this is definitely going to be a theme in our conversation today, just because of what it is that our guest focuses on and where her strengths lie. So stay tuned for that. She also had a volunteer experience that would change her life through the Career Planning Center, a not-for-profit dedicated to empowering women. She learned that the methodology of career planning, and not only taught it to her clients, but has been continually applying it to her own search. So there's so much more to come, but let's see. She also speaks French and Spanish, and she is currently writing pandemic lifestyle articles, offering a complimentary career coaching session to anyone in need. And then there's something here about an article, Corona Bonuses. Here we go, that she recently wrote an article about Corona Bonuses. And this is about the recognition and elevation of respect and gratitude for the contributions of essential workers, many of whose jobs were formerly considered menial by society at large. So this is just, once again, a drop in the bucket, a scratch on the surface of who and what this person is. So without further ado, I am so delighted to introduce our guest today, Dr. Diane Sukiennik. And I'm beginning the show, as we always do, by asking, Diane, who do you think you are?
Well, I know who I am. I am the ineffable lightness of being, expressing itself with joie de vivre, which is the joy of life, and showing up currently in the service of the world through my writing, my food, wine, travel writing, which expresses the joy of leisure through my life and the lives of others, and encourages people to embrace leisure as a significant and really essential part of life. And I also serve people through my career coaching. So there you have it.
And we're done. No.
Go play.
You know what? I just, okay. There are so many different trajectories that we could go on. And, in the quantum field, all of those are happening right now simultaneously. So let's just pick one. Let's go with leisurologist. I just, when we had a conversation a couple of months ago, when we sort of, were first getting to know each other, and we were talking about leisure and joy and that those being two very significant elements of life that a lot of times people don't necessarily embrace, never mind embody, that there can be this sort of, stigma around joy or around leisure. I know when I think of leisure, to me, it can also mean kind of feeling lazy and not, doing anything or not contributing in any way. But since meeting you, I mean, you are the embodiment of joy. And I love how you just use the phrase, joie de vivre in there, because the joy of life, I mean, it's too bad. Well, if you shut off your video, people would see, but Diane has this photo of herself. So when her video is off, she's just the expression of infinite joy, on a boat, by a pool, whatever it is, just, she's joy radiating. It's amazing. So anytime I'm in Diane's company, that is how I feel. I feel joyful. So talk to us about what joy and leisure and, whatever it is that is interwoven with those things, what that is in your life, what kind of meaning that has for you in your life.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that, because it's not really something I have thought a lot about recently. It used to be exactly what you alluded to, the sense that, oh my gosh, if I'm enjoying life, if I'm playing at life, I must not be serious. I must not be contributing. And I felt a little guilty about that. And I've had several conversations with significant individuals who have helped me to understand that joy perhaps is the definitive purpose of life. I think of the Dalai Lama, for instance. When you think of the Dalai Lama and just put a picture of him in your mental mind, he always has a smile on his face, even though he's often dealing and talking about and in the presence of people and situations that are very substantial and very serious. He approaches each and every one with a sense of joy and wonderment. Thomas Troward, of course, said that the purpose of life is to enjoy. I could go on about that, but I've learned through my own investigation to embrace joy. And I've learned that perhaps my greatest gift on earth is to spread joy and have a sense that I do that very naturally, very spontaneously. I'm not a comic, but I bring lightness and a smile wherever I go.
You do. And going back to your original response of that you are the ineffable lightness of being expressing, there is this incredible lightness about you. There is this joy. I just feel uplifted every time I'm in your company. And that is such a gift, like such a true gift, to just automatically be up-leveled and expanded in such a beautiful way just by being in someone's company. I mean, you're vibrating at a pretty high frequency, Diane, and I'm sure that for people listening and for people watching, that there is something happening, for them on some level right now, just by being in your company, because you are such a beautiful expression of joy, of this lightness of being. So thank you for that. And I love that, the greatest gift that you have to offer, and you just do it so gracefully. It's so natural. And that could be why it's so easy for you to give of that, because it comes naturally to you, whether or not, the beginnings of it were that way. And there was this, evolution that took place at some point, but now, I mean, that's just you're in your element, so to speak. So
It's true.
thank you.
Well, and I thank all of the people in my life who have helped me realize that this truly is my greatest gift, and to not feel guilty about being light, even though there's plenty to feel heavy about in the universe. So I'll leave that to somebody else, the heaviness. And I'll stick with the lightness.
All right.
Okay. We all have choices, so why not?
Okay. All right. So that's the joy aspect. So talk about now, tell us about this self-proclaimed label of leisurologist. I mean, that just, to me now today, that just sounds like, wow, I want that. I want to be a leisurologist. It just conjures up in my mind, I can do whatever, go wherever, whenever I want. I am completely free to enjoy life in however I choose. That's kind of what it comes to mind for me when I think of leisurologist. So tell us about what leisurologist means for you, and how that is your sort of life expression right now.
Well, you just expressed what leisurology or leisure means to you. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I help people do is help them define it for themselves, because it does mean different things to different people. For me, for my partner, Michael, and I, we love nothing more than hosting. For us, even though hosting takes a lot of work, it's first of all an expression of our joy of life. And Michael shares it in equal amounts to me. That's one of the reasons we've been together for 50 years, enjoying life. And so there you are, hosting for us, having people in our home, sharing our lifestyle, sharing food and conversation together. We can't think of anything we'd rather do. And of course, a very, very close second is travel, and really kind of a constant life of learning. Experiencing the joy of curiosity and allowing that to take us where it will. A very brief story. Just recently, I was walking in the neighborhood, as I do often, and I was just about to get home. And I was walking in the street because we have a very empty area and there's no traffic. A car pulls up next to me, stops, and says, hello, can I talk to you? Right in the middle of the street, right as I'm walking, I have my earbuds in, I take them out. I assumed the person wanted directions. No, she said, oh my God, I've observed you walking. I don't live here, but I come to visit my mom who's right across the street. I've seen you walking. You have an incredible countenance about you. You have something very special, an aura. What is it? I want some. I want what you have. Can you share it? This is our 2-minute conversation. Yeah. It really took me aback because, of course, I was in a different space. I was listening to a podcast, but that's an expression of the fact that you can be at leisure even when you're doing your exercise, even when you're listening to a podcast. It's a state of mind.
Aha. Okay. Yep. State of mind. Now, you mentioned that one of your favorite things to do is hosting, and there was something in your bio about being a global hostess.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember, something like that. There is a little ritual that you and Michael have when you have people over, which when I first heard it, I thought was absolutely delightful. Would you be willing to talk about it, or would that be giving away a surprise to any future guests that you might have that haven't been over at your house yet?
Well, there's some of both there. Well, we have several rituals. We always start in our garden with champagne and hors d'oeuvres and casual conversation. When we get to the dinner table, I always have a question for the table.
Uh-huh.
So rather than continuing with random conversation, we get focused. And it's a topic, it's a soulful conversation.
Mhm.
And it's a means and a method for each of us to get to know each other on a deeper level. That's the intention. And so that's one of the rituals. And then as the evening unfolds and as several courses are shared and as we're wrapping up with chocolates and after dinner drinks, at a certain point I say, Michael, let's get happy. I just kind of do that. And he knows exactly what comes next. And so he turns on his appropriate digital device. And we start with the happy song by Pharrell Williams. So the song starts playing. I get up, I pull someone from the table, and I start dancing. And Michael does the same. And I say, come on, guys, let's do it. And so before they know what's happening, we're all out on the dance floor, which of course is just next to our dining room table. And we're dancing. And it's the most beautiful, joyful expression, even for individuals who are typically not comfortable in that modality. Somehow it frees them up, and a lot has to do with the surprise of it, obviously.
Mhm.
And we dance, and we literally dance our guests out to their cars. And it's a beautiful ending to a memorable evening, and we do create memorable evenings. It's our joy.
Wow.
Yes, it's our joy.
I'm looking at Glenn's face right now, and there's this smile on your face, honey bunch, that I'm loving seeing. What are you thinking right now?
I thank you for these stories. I yeah, I like, it's a very vivid image, right? It's very mindful yet playful, right?
Yes.
It's you're choosing this idea of focusing everyone and including everyone with the question, and making sure everyone's included, I guess, in that way. But
Yes.
the transition into, post dessert or whatever it may be, is like, oh, it's going to get even better here. And then you're just waltzing them out the door. That's great. And also it helps me connect better, because I'm not in LA, with the people on the Let's Talk, the GTC Let's Talk Monday night thing,
Yes.
because I see faces and I get a sense of people in their, what they're about. But I'm assuming some of the people have been your guests, maybe. And so I'm just saying, well,
That's so true.
now I can envision these people just, with Michael and Diane moving
Oh,
out the door. Yeah, it's great.
yes. So you can imagine how what a sense of loss, and thank goodness not total, just a temporary loss. The pandemic presented to us, because we couldn't do that for a year. And for us, it's interesting. Friends who know us, and we typically travel maybe 6 months of the year, and they said, well, what's it been like for you with the pandemic, not being able to travel? We didn't have a problem with that at all. our problem was not being able to host.
Mm.
We really, really missed that connection, that deep connection that we create with people that we invite. And the notion of hostess, ambassador of the world, we really pride ourselves on having friends that we know and new individuals come together. So at our table, there's always somebody new and somebody who is a seasoned individual or, a friend in our lives. So we're waiting for you two. Please do.
We're coming down. At some point we are coming down. Right
Excellent.
now I think it's probably, if not sooner, would be summer of 2022. But yeah, no, I mean, there are so like Global Truth Center Los Angeles, that for those who may be listening to this episode, this is the first episode and you don't know what we're talking about. I am studying with Dr. James Mellon, who is the spiritual director of the Global Truth Center, the founder also of the Global Truth Center Los Angeles. That is my Thursday night advanced consciousness studies class. That's who I'm with him and a bunch of people from the Global Truth Center. We're calling it GTC as well for short. And Diane is a member and is taking classes as well. And Glenn is pretty active in the community as well from afar. These are people who we feel close to and we feel are our community, but we've never met in person, except for one. One of my classmates from practitioner studies came up the summer in between for a visit. And so we've met Amy. But other than that, I feel so close to so many of these people, but we've never actually met in person. It's just, as Craig Lincoln would say, pixels on a screen. And just the idea in mind of like, yes, I know Diane is there. I even know that Glenn is sitting in another room in the same house right now, but really it's just these images that are here. So we so look forward to coming down. And when you talk about hosting, Diane, and having these dinners and bringing together people very intentionally, it just, I love that. I grew up in a house where my parents loved to entertain, like absolutely loved to entertain. And whether it was a small dinner party or a larger, gathering that was more casual, there was always amazing food, amazing music, incredible conversation. My sister and I would, she'd end up coming into my room with her sleeping bag and we'd end up huddled up on the floor thinking, oh my God, when are they going to go to bed? Because we need to sleep. Because they'd be singing and partying, into the wee hours of the morning. There was just so much fun and so much life. Yeah, and they would also dance. I mean, it wasn't sort of, as ritualistic as much of a tradition as yours, but I know that they would get up and dance, push away some tables in the living room and just, boogie on down. And so this is something that I think is just a part of my being, a part of my soul, and something that I really love. And for me too, this is one of the things that I have missed, that I look forward to being together with people over, breaking bread, sharing stories. And one of the most amazing things that I am so grateful for is I'm Ukrainian and we celebrate Christmas in January by the old calendar. And so this was the first year right before the pandemic became a thing, or COVID became a thing. Then in January, we had a big party, and it was the first time ever that we decided to do a buffet for our traditional 12-course Ukrainian Christmas dinner or Byzantine dinner meal, which really is not 12 courses. I mean, traditionally it's 12 very specific courses served in a very specific order. They all have meaning. However, we make more than one of, some kind of dish. So there's like subcategories. So in the end, there's like 24 or more dishes, right? And it's a feast. It really is a feast. It is steeped in ritual. And usually it is a sit down affair and it lasts for 3 to 4 hours or more, right? But there were so many new people in our lives, so many people that we had met, especially where I was working, where I met a lot of people every day as customers. And there were some that I just really started to get along with and, build a relationship with. And I just thought how wonderful it would be to just party with these people. And so we decided to do a buffet. And I don't know, we had, I think maybe around somewhere between 30 and 40 people. I can't remember how many. There were people who we now consider very close friends of ours, you know, since moving here almost 5 years ago. And then there were these new people that just had barely met and barely knew, or knew only in one context. And then there was this, you know, tradition that I wanted to share, you know, with all of these people. And it's also a way of just saying thank you for being a part of our lives. You know, this is our sort of gift to you, is this experience, this event. And man, I gotta tell you, I mean, we originally were only going to make like maybe 4 or 5 key dishes. And then I'm like, well, how can we make this and not make this? And then if we make this, we have to make this. And oh my gosh, if we're making that, then we got to make this version of that. And then like, oh, I really want to try this. And my mom, you know, was just rolling her eyes thinking, oh, you said we were making 5 dishes. But we made this incredible spread. And a few people brought some salads, which was great, because some people said, you know, what can we bring? And I'm like, you know what, bring salad, because there's no salad on the menu in this meal. And we could use some greenery and some raw vegetables. And that just, you know, rounded everything out so beautifully. The magic, the electricity, I'm going to use one of my favorite non-words, which I am, you know, committed to having become an actual word, the divine intertwinglement of that evening, of everyone who was there, that still resonates, that still radiates, you know, all like a year and a half after it actually happened. Oh my gosh, the conversation, the energy, people being curious about each other, you know, engaging with each other, people who barely knew each other, didn't know each other, people curious about what this tradition was, you know, the opportunity to talk a little bit about these, you know, Ukrainian Christmas traditions. It was spectacular. And then not even 2 months later, boom, shut down. And that was it. You know, COVID-19, coronavirus was, you know, top of mind for everyone. I am so grateful that we actually did it the way we did it, and that we just opened ourselves up to that bigger, grander, more expansive, you know, experience of joy and
Right.
electricity and energy and everything that was happening that night. Because it's a year and a half later, and even as I'm talking about it, I'm back there, you know, like I'm transported back there. A couple of people wrote me a year later, you know, in January, saying, you know, I'm just remembering last year when we were all at your house, and we were celebrating, and we had this amazing meal and this amazing time and the conversation and everything. Thank you so much. And so I'm just so grateful it ended up being, you know, that rather than a sit down dinner, or rather than just the 5 dishes, because it was so magical. And that magical gift is just keeps on giving, you know.
Right.
So I do look forward to being able to have people over again, and might incorporate your dancing, because I love that idea. I love to dance. I love to move. And when we were younger and we lived in Toronto, we would actually go dancing. Do you remember those
Yes.
days, Honey Bunch?
Yes.
You're muted. You got to unmute. You got to be part of the conversation.
There's noise outside. So yes, I do remember fondly and often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 But isn't it interesting to think about it? Yes, we used to go dancing,
Woohoo.
but hello, the dancing is here
Yep.
and now.
Yep.
We don't have to wait for an occasion. We create the occasion.
That's a good one.
Oh.
I'm writing that down.
Our 16-year-old daughter gets a little uncomfortable if we just start spontaneously dancing in the kitchen or something.
Of course. Oh, of course.
What are you doing?
Well,
Stop.
understand that. Just wait a few years.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we have talked about joy, and we know a little bit more about what amazing hosts Diane and Michael are, let's veer off in a slightly different direction. There on your bookshelf behind you are a couple of copies, or more than a couple of copies, of what I believe is your book.
Yes.
career
Yes.
fitness program. That
Yes.
is something that is a big part of who and what you are. It's a big part of your life. It's a big part of your life's work. Talk to us about that, please.
Well, the book was totally unintentional, as life is when it really unfolds perfectly. How it all started was I completed my master's at Columbia in New York, moved to Los Angeles to be with Michael. My first professional job was working as a caseworker at a residential treatment center for delinquent adolescent girls called Penny Lane. It still exists. And I was really feeling very challenged by how best to serve this population. And I stumbled upon the notion of going out into the immediate neighborhood and talking the small business owners into considering our girls as either apprentices or volunteers or workers. And I discovered in the process of doing that and in the process of getting our girls out in the community and having them work, their self-esteem, their confidence it just blossomed in ways that any other therapeutic intervention was not able to accomplish. So I thought, wow, the power of work. Mm-hmm. I had experienced it in my own life, but it was much easier to understand and appreciate when I saw it transforming the lives of these troubled teenagers. And so I shortly thereafter was out of work. And while job hunting, I looked in the volunteer section of the newspaper. You remember those newspapers. And I saw Career Planning Center. I didn't know anything about it, but it spoke to me. And so as I pursued it, it was an organization, a philanthropic organization sponsored by the Seroptimists, whose sole intention was to help women get back on their feet and into the work world. So I learned their technology. I certainly was helpful to the women that we served, and I applied the technology to my own life. And having begun to do career counseling, I wanted to do more of it. I wanted to share it with the world. And so I looked for a job where that would be possible, and found one in the community college as a professor, as a counselor. And I decided to develop a course, which I did. There were no textbooks in the subject area, so I wrote some subject notes and put them in the bookstore. And that was a very typical thing to do in those days. And then a small publisher found the notes, traced me down, and said, you know, this is the kernel of a book. You could go face to face with, at that time, the most widely successful career book called What Color is Your Parachute? However, it was what we call a trade book, not a textbook. Trade book meaning that which can be purchased at any bookstore, a textbook which is typically used in a college university setting and which could really only at that time be purchased from a bookstore. Now, of course, Amazon is out there and there are many ways to find it. So I didn't believe I could write anything that this other book hadn't already said. Mm. And here's, I think, an important lesson for all of us. We each have our own voice. Mm-hmm. It's not so much that I reinvented what career planning is all about, but I expressed it in my own voice. And that voice has resonated for years and years and years. This book, now in its 11th edition, is still the preeminent text in its field, and it's used internationally. So it obviously resonates. And I might have said many of the same things as other texts or other books in the field. But for some reason, it really stuck. So as a result, I was invited to do consulting, keynoting around the world. I spent a lot of time in South Africa, which was an immensely transformative experience because of where they were with work and who was doing work and for what purposes. There was a lot going on in the field of work. And I've continued to use work as a transformative vehicle, not only in my life, but in the lives of others. And I'm in a position now where I can offer a complimentary career coaching session to whomever is in need. And I'm thrilled to do it because I know how powerful work can be in helping to enlighten, enlarge our lives.
You know, you've used the words transformative and power or powerful a few times in our conversation so far. And so that kind of paired with what just came to mind for me when you were talking about we each have our own voice, kind of took me back to yesterday. Glenn and I were watching on YouTube Reverend Jonathan Zenz's talk. He's the senior minister at Unity of Tucson in Arizona, and his talk was on the golden ticket. And he had a few acronyms in there, kind of like, he loves his acronyms just as much as Dr. James does. And one of his acronyms was for the word you, which was your own uniqueness. And I thought, that's fantastic. That is amazing, because that is exactly what you are, is you are this individualized expression, this unique expression of that allness of being, of that lightness of being, of that infinite energy that is the essence of everyone and everything. And it sounds to me like the work that you do, it helps and empowers people to find their own uniqueness, their own voice, like you sort of said. And in doing so, the transformation takes place, you know, this powerful transformation takes place in them recognizing their worth, their value, and then being able to live from that rather than whatever it is that, you know, they might be, however it is that they might be living now, from any kind of limiting beliefs or stories or things that, you know, other people are telling them, or just, you know, from experience as we know it to be, kind of thing. So this is amazing. And I love hearing when you talk about work, it's different. There's a different energy to it. There's a different connotation to it. A lot of times when people talk about work, it's work, you know, that it's like heavy, it's drudgery, it's something I have to do. And that's not what I get from you when you're talking about work. So yeah. So can you talk a little bit about more that, because it just, this is interesting to you know, feel this different energy with a word, and you know, that conjures up this, you know, feeling for a lot of people. So what does work mean to you?
It means the expression of the unique self in service of the planet.
Okay.
It means the expression of who I am in a way that can that can add to, and I think that the pandemic, as I indicated in my article, Corona Bonuses, has done something absolutely transformative to work. And that is it has elevated the menial to the classification of essential.
Mm.
We somehow have put work into categories. There's professional work, and that's good. And then there's work that one does if one never got an opportunity to go to high school or college, and that's menial. Now, the pandemic erased and blurred those lines so beautifully that now many more of us understand that work is noble. It is valuable. It is an opportunity for us to feel that we can and do offer something. And it gives our lives meaning. It gives us self-confidence, a sense of mastery, if we allow it to do so. So in my career coaching, there are 3 opportunities. You can choose, change, or confirm your career goals. And one of the things that most people want to do when they come for career coaching is throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning I want nothing to do with what it is I'm currently doing. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a person who's a lawyer or a person who is a plumber or, I mean, it goes all over the board. That's a very typical sense that people bring to career coaching. I'm over it. I'm sick of it. I don't want anything to do with anything even remotely related. I want something new, something different. That's always possible, but there are a lot of issues to consider. And where I like to start is, what is it about the work that you're currently doing that you enjoy? That's a tough question for most people, because again, by the time they come to me, they don't relate to anything that they enjoy about work. So I challenge them with that. Because, well, there are lots of reasons. In any event, so work really, as I said, is ennobling, even if you don't believe it's your ideal or highest, best calling. Mm-hmm. And those are all topics that we can and do get into, and we do explore, etc. But I think it's really important for us to embrace anything we're doing, any honest work has value. And when you can begin to grasp that, really believe it and own it, you feel better about what you're doing, regardless of what it is. Because you begin to understand how it contributes to life as we know it.
You know, I'm really, really, really appreciating everything that you're talking about right now, Diane. And one of the things that that this just took me back to is when we first moved here from Toronto, where Glenn and I had lived for sort of 30-ish years of our adult lives. And we really that our life was there, you know, and but we knew that we were meant to move here to Victoria. And so we came here knowing we're meant to be here, that this was the right place for our family at the right time. And when we moved here, we came from already established careers. And for me, I was thinking that I was just going to kind of bring what I was doing over there over here, and that it was going to just blossom. And what sort of quickly happened for us, what our experience was nobody cared what we did in Toronto. Nobody even cared that we were from Toronto. We were brand new here, and it was almost as if we kind of had to prove ourselves that we were, you know, worthy of being here, which is a very strange situation to be in. And so the very first job that I got was working as a clerk in a grocery store. And it was an organic grocery store. And I know that I definitely, you know, had a very active part in creating that reality, because a few months before we moved here, I was saying at one of the stores that we shopped at frequently, you know, I want to work somewhere where I get a discount on supplements, because we take quite a few really good supplements. And this was an
Yes.
organic grocery store with a fantastic supplement section. And I was hired originally well, there was a lot of stuff that happened, but when I finally got hired, I was supposed to spend half my time in the grocery department because I had a lot of experience in food, being in the food industry for 20 years, and then half my time in the supplements department. I maybe worked one day in the supplements department because I worked my way up in the grocery store. But what I remember, which is kind of pertinent to this part of our conversation, is how beneath me it felt to be working as a clerk in a grocery store after having been an entrepreneur and businesswoman and having had my own business and staff and multiple incomes, through Toronto's first organic, sustainably minded bakery that was also gluten-free and vegan, to being just a grocery store clerk. But what ended up happening, because I was already taking classes to get into spiritual practitioner studies, was I'm like, okay, you know what? It's up to me how I'm going to experience this job, which I can do very well, kind of with my hands tied behind my back and my eyes closed, kind of thing. But really, like, do I want to just come to work and hate it and be there for 8.5 hours, feeling just drudgery and work? Or do I want to feel something different? And so what I decided was I want to feel something different. And what I realized very quickly was, because we had just moved across country and we moved from a 3 or 4 level townhome, which was quite large compared with the 3-bedroom apart, like 1 level 3-bedroom unit that we were renting here. We got rid of 75% of our stuff. And then we brought some stuff with us in a car, and then the rest of the stuff came in a moving van. And so even though we got rid of all this stuff, we still had, all of this stuff that we had in this big house to put into this new little space with no storage really. And so there were boxes, everywhere. And it was discombobulating, and it was kind of stressful. And what I realized when I would be at work was, as I was cleaning, as I was facing the, canned goods and the boxes of food and whatever, it was very meditative for me. It was very orderly. It created just this, harmony and balance that I was actively participating in as I was moving things on the shelves, if I was ticking things on forms, and having conversations with people, but specifically just the action of putting things in order, creating this balance and harmony, and making canned fish look nice and pretty on the shelf. It got me through going back home to this chaos of boxes and where are we going to put things and where are we going to hang things and how are we going to, make our home pretty and balanced and comfortable and harmonious. So that was a shift, in thinking, and it was up to me. Like I had a choice, am I going to feel this way, or am I going to choose something different? And it wasn't even just like this or this. It was like, am I going to feel this, or am I going to choose something different? I'm choosing something different. And eventually, that job lasted for as long as it lasted. I ended up leaving when I was finished with my time there. And that led me to something else, which led me to something else. All the while, I'm still in my spiritual studies, because for me, that is the calling on my heart. That is the calling on my soul. That's why I am here. So there's this trajectory, this parallel trajectory, if you will, or concurrent, realities, if you will, of work as something that allows me to also then move in this direction of what it is that really is my life's purpose, or what is ultimately the expression of me. And there's still sort of a balance between the two, and there's prosperity consciousness that comes into play in terms of money coming only from work, and that this is sort of the job and what allows me to sort of do like the fantasy kind of stuff. But that's, a different conversation. But just seeing the work that I was doing differently while I was doing the spiritual work, the work on who and what I am, on like the journey, of my evolution, of my expansion. So that's what kind of came to mind for me as you were talking about that. And
Yes.
and that to me is transformation, and it's empowerment, and there's growth. there. So yeah, it's interesting thinking about what work means and what a powerful catalyst it can be for our own evolution and expansion.
Yes, your example really perfectly illustrates what I have been talking about and helping people to understand and embrace for themselves. Yeah, it's a great example.
Thank you. Honey
The,
Bunch.
the word work has come up. Lassie and I were on a call yesterday that she'd set up, and there was some interesting comments about, not to go too deep into it, but like the idea of how work changes. This was one notion that, what I've sort of always done in the circumstances of the last 12 to 14 months, especially if you're a entrepreneur, you're self-employed, you have to rethink everything. So um, in doing so, you have to be open. This person was saying, I've just said yes to whatever appears because that's the direction that sort of I'm being taken in, that will lead to um, stability and growth and all that, which was good to hear, that even though there was an upheaval, this person has sort of, I don't want to say soldiered on, but like they've moved forward in an accepting way, and things are fine or better in a different way. Um, and the other comment was that a person who was more into the financial industry as their career had mentioned that they noticed when they're helping someone, if they focus on, the money as it, like this person, me helping them and focusing on the commission kind of thing, it kind of deflates or falls flat. But focusing on the service they're providing to the person, giving them the best that they can get through this coaching and help, um, just and letting it go. Like, I'm glad I was able to help you with this. Then it just automatically would help them in their impact on back on them, to say, oh, it worked out fine because I was focusing on the real thing, which is the connection and the service.
Yeah.
But this word work, it's like, it, last put us into some breakout groups within the call, and right away in my group, the idea of hard work came up. It's like I was raised to think of work as being something you had to strive for. There was like, it was struggle, and it was
Mm.
and then that leads to the notion of just getting by, rather than thriving, right? And the first thing that popped in my head as I entered into this room was, I forget how Lassa framed the question, but it was basically, um, I sort of quickly realized, like in that instant, it's like, oh, I think I was brought up to view work as a reflection, and money as a reflection of my value as a human being. Meaning, if you're a good person, you're rewarded proportionately to your goodness or value or worth. Which is, I know is false, but I know it's an operating framework in which many people, that's their default, is like, oh, I'm only good enough to do this, so I'll only ever make this, and I'll only ever be able to live in this kind of setting or this community. Whereas I think what you're alluding to in your work is helping people tap into a place of fulfillment,
Yeah. Yeah.
growth, going forward from, like, me being the best me means I enjoy what I do, and I obviously then impact other people and help them, um, and it just sort of flows from there, you know. Fulfillment is one of my favorite words or concepts, which I'm always working on, but it's like, it's just a good reframing of the word work kind of thing. You know?
Thank you. Again, I couldn't have said it better. There is an element of fulfillment in any kind of work. And if we begin to find it and focus on it, all kinds of things occur. It's magic. I'd love to use the word magic. It's really not magic. It's bringing forward what we know is possible in the universe and keeping open to it. Rather than the limiting concept of work, recognizing that work offers opportunities for expansion, and it's all in how you frame it and how you work it. You can work your work.
It's and the other thing you're saying about joy, and play is so important, right? We love watching our cat just doing whatever cat things she does, because it's like, she really doesn't care about anything except, like, oh, did I lick that piece of, her tongue's going there. But that seeing reflected in others, you can see it in young children too. It's just like pure creaturehood, pure kind of like moving around, enjoying, growing, and the inevitable little bumps and tumbles, but they just get up, because we're as human beings, we're anti-fragile. We're built to kind of be resilient, but I think we can quite easily, or all too easily, fall into that thing of like, when you encounter suffering or pain, you get wrapped up in it. It's like, then you're on that vibration of like, oh, life is hard, you got to work at it, you got to tunnel your way through all the obstacles. But you could quite often, by just taking a moment or breathing, you can realize, no, there are plenty of examples in my life, if I close my eyes for even 10 seconds, where I remember sheer joy or laughter, like you're saying, at dinner parties or being out with friends, or something unexpected happening, and it just, you can do nothing else but laugh,
Yes.
And there are so many opportunities to do that. And again, I guess we're getting better at, with the new setup here, everything currently being digital, we're getting to meet other people who we can appreciate, that they have that knack. They have the knack of being light, being like, that word light, again, is, we've discussed that in the podcast before, with, it's not just shining light and whatever, it's like lightness, it's a balloon just going up and just giving you a better vantage point, and just it's exhilarating, so
It's opening. Yeah. And as you were talking, I was thinking about another concept that I love to challenge individuals with, and that is making sure that you're bringing your whole self to work, that you're not compartmentalizing, and that you're not limiting, and that the lightness and laughter and play and leisure can all be part of your work. And a lot has to do with how you work your work. One of the things I challenge folks to do is think about, what do you ideally want to do more of and less of? And when you have that frame of reference,
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
And
take a look at the help section in your Alexa app.
Oh my, is that on your end?
Guest on all of a sudden?
I think I think it's in your end, Diane, but I think it's maybe picking up on some of your words and think
It
you're
must
having a
be.
conversation.
Oh, my, that's a very, very unique happening. But there it is.
It's what's happening.
You
Yeah.
see, in the background, there are other forces at work or at play.
That's
Right.
yes. They're having fun with us.
Want to frame it. Oh my God. But there are opportunities. I mean, when I go to the store, for instance, grocery shopping has all of a sudden this past year become a favorite pastime. Why? Because it's one of the only things we've been able to do. And even at that, we were warned, oh, be careful and make sure you have your mask on, the whole 9 yards. But one of the things I do is I always ask whomever to help me out with my groceries. Now, it's not that I'm such a frail thing, but I know two things. One, this gives them the opportunity to leave, a legitimate opportunity to leave and come out and get some fresh air.
Right.
And secondly, it gives me an opportunity to lighten their day because we have some conversation. And it's always joyful, and it's a win-win. And so, you know, just thinking of something that simple, I think about our gardener. When he comes over, he not only does the work that he's typically going to do, but both Michael and I engage him in conversation about plants and stuff that he knows stuff about. But unless he has the opportunity to talk about it and demonstrate it, he just goes from one house to the other doing the same repetitive thing. We want him to know that we appreciate him and what he has to offer and brings to our lovely garden. And so that it's not just a transaction, it's a person-to-person honoring and communication of our roles in each other's lives.
You know, Diane, as someone who used to work in a grocery store, I can attest to if someone needed help with their groceries to their car, I'll do it for those exact reasons, because it was an opportunity to get out of the store, to get outside. Not that it was a horrible place to work, but to get outside and to engage with someone in a slightly different way than, you know, just like, let's go down to this aisle. This is here. I mean, I would have conversations about baking and gluten-free and vegan stuff anyway, because I had that background and people were interested and curious. But yes, I can totally relate to that. It was just, yes, I'll go outside. Thank you very much. That's beautiful. That's amazing. And it kind of, you know, takes me back to something else that came up yesterday in the event that we had, which was the quote, Honey Bunch, that you brought in from, I forget her name, from The Soul of Money. What we appreciate appreciates. And so showing appreciation, you know, in these small ways, it just allows people to feel more valued, to feel more heard, more seen. And I can only think that then, you know, fosters a greater sense of contribution in whatever it is that you're doing.
That's right. Exactly right. Yes. Yes.
That.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful way to move through life, because there are opportunities. There's never a dull moment unless you create it. but there's excitement and opportunity and adventure in the most mundane tasks. Glenn, you were going to say something.
Yeah, when you said opportunity there, and Lassie had mentioned we're gonna use all Jonathan,
right.
Reverend Jonathan Zen's acronyms. That the other one he had was no. When you say no, it stands for next opportunity.
How great is that?
It's so
there
good.
It is. There it is. There it is. And it's around the corner. It's around the corner. It's waiting for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you're both speaking there, it reminds me of this notion of, I don't know when I decided, in my 30s or 40s, whatever it was, I'm mid 50s now, but that it's okay to say, I don't know. And then even better, it's an opportunity. When you say, I don't know, it lets so much more in. Like if you just say, oh, I know that. I know how to do my groceries. I've done it before. Like you can genuinely take that tack and say, what do you mean? Of course I can do my groceries. Like I'm not a fool, But if you take the thing of saying, I'm not quite sure if this is this the organic or whatever, you can open up a conversation with someone and they, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see someone looking at a piece of fruit or a veggie that I've never used. I'll ask them, oh, what are you going to do with that? How do you use that? It's that,
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
the conversation.
Alexa.
Go figure.
Oh boy.
The serendipity of life, which is really what joy is about. Finding the serendipity, finding the joy, creating the joy, being the joy.
Yeah.
Back to joy. Back
Yes.
to joy. Just can't get away from that joy. I would like to go back though, just for a bit more into this optimal fitness of career planning, the in and around the book and the work that you do, the way you are of service to people. And one of the things that I have jotted down here is that there are 3 main steps when you are working with someone. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Personal assessment, world of work savvy, and job strategy search. Can you talk about those job search strategy? Can you talk about those 3 aspects of this work?
Yeah. Well, again, so typically when a person is interested in career coaching, they're really thinking career change. I want to, I don't want anything to do with whatever it is I'm currently doing. I'm sick of it, blah, blah, blah. And they're often either thinking or saying, okay, what's hot? What should I get into? And that's not the best first question, even though it's the one that's on the top of their mind. And the reason is, I can say, for instance, okay, tech is hot. No one's going to dispute that. But how does that relate to you? And that's where the personal assessment comes into the picture and into the plan. And people don't want to take the time for that. Oh, I know who I am, blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe not. So by personal assessment, we're talking about taking stock, reevaluating who I am, who do I bring to the world of work? And that who I am comes in the form of what are my values? What are my interests? What are my skills? What are my aptitudes? What are my talents? What are my limitations, either self-induced or just, there? Mm-hmm. What's my personality type? Mm-hmm. What are my highest and best ideals that I'm thinking about? What's my mission statement? Mm-hmm. All of this really goes into. Now, once you have a handle on all of that, then you can go to what's the workplace like? What's being asked for, what's being needed. And tech stuff is being needed. Healthcare stuff is certainly on the front burner. And so once I know how I can interface with the world of work, I may not be a tech person. I'm a people person, but there are people persons who are required in the tech world because very often genuine techies do not have the people skills to do the parts of that job or that industry that I, even though I'm not a tech savvy individual, can do much better. So we need each other. And any industry really needs the whole composite of skills available. So once I know what I have to offer, I then can interface with an industry that is of interest to me. And then the job search strategy is, well, how do I go about getting what I think I'd like to get from this world of work? In other words, getting a job or a position. And that depends a lot also on who I am, what my personality is. Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? Am I tech savvy? If so, I'll rely heavily on the tech and the digital world for my job search. If I'm a people person, my strength then is relying on my network and working my network, expanding my network to make sure that people are aware of who I am, what I'm looking for, and what I can offer. So just some of the concepts that relate to those three pieces of the puzzle. I think there's a lot of misconception about work. One of them is there's one right job. If I just think hard enough about it or take the right test, and lots of people come in saying, well, aren't you going to give me a test? Or isn't there a test for this? Oh, if it were that simple. Yeah, there are lots of, we don't call them tests, we call them assessments or inventories. Yeah. And yeah, they're around, but truly, if you do some thoughtful question and answering, you can come up with a much better result than any assessment or inventory can give you about who you are in terms of the world of work. So, and the fact is there is no one right job. There's a whole constellation of work, career, jobs that will express some of the fullness of who you are. And the other thing is either or. Well, either I'm going to be a lawyer or I'm going to be a food, wine, and travel writer. Well, says who? Who's putting these either or barriers on you? Yep. You are, of course. I always say, let's look at how we can have it all.
Yeah.
And sometimes that'll happen in one job, and sometimes it's a number of things that you do kind of simultaneously. And who says that's not the best way for you to live your life?
Yeah.
And so when you're in the process of career, the other thing that happens is volunteering becomes absolutely essential, critical, because, okay, maybe, Lazia, as you suggest, your highest best calling is in the spiritual realm. And that's where you're headed. Well, that doesn't mean you have to do nothing until you somehow magically get there, wherever there is. What that means is that you need to start doing it, acting as if being this person that you envision right here, right now. And that often comes through a volunteer kind of opportunity. And it's a tremendous way for us to test out whether, in fact, what I think I want to do is what I want to do. I have actually worked with people. I remember working with a young man who was in his third year of dental school and discovered that that's not really what he wanted to do. That's unfortunate, because he could have figured that out much, much sooner.
Well, okay, Diane, I'm going to stop you right there. Yes and no, I would say, right? If we're thinking of the quantum and infinite possibilities, then there are these infinite trajectories, and histories of trajectories that are just available and have taken place but not taken place. So in this one reality, that was the unfoldment of the path. But perhaps in, if he had leapt into another one or chosen another one to, collapse as his reality, then yes, he could have, maybe whatever would have happened, he would have gone in a different direction and have realized, not even gone to, dental school. And in another one, he finishes it and never realizes that, it's not like, there are just so many infinite possibilities, right? So that's just what came to mind there. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just thought, I think it's a yes and, situation.
Very, very good. I'll certainly take that. Yeah. But my point being that if you look for a volunteer opportunity to test out what you think it is that you're headed toward, then you give yourself the time and space. I think back to my travel writing, and as I was doing it, I thought, oh, my next step is a TV show. And that's really what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I took the opportunity, I created the opportunity to talk to someone who had a TV show that was similar to what I thought I wanted to create. And we had a conversation. And in that 10-minute conversation, she clarified what her job was and what mine is. And I saw very, very clearly that there was no way I wanted to do a TV show about food, wine, and travel. And oh my God, I mean, the time, the energy that she saved me, immense. I'm totally and eternally grateful for her setting me straight on what I was thinking about as opposed to what I already had, which was far better.
Okay, this is so interesting because two things came up for me as you were talking.
Okay.
One, I'm going to go backwards because I'll remember the volunteering one, but this, talking about the TV show, I love being in front of people, being in front of an audience, being in community with people, whether it's a group of 12 or hundreds or, at some point thousands. I really feel at home. That's one of my happy places. And so one of many times over, I guess, sort of the later portion of my career, especially when I had my bakery and I was doing farmers markets and trade shows and just teaching, a lot of people would say, you should have your own TV show. You would be great at your own TV show. And I would always say, I have no interest in being on television. I really want to write a book. I see myself as an author. That's what I see. And so I was just thinking, I hadn't thought about that in some time, about the TV show bit until you just mentioned it. And then here I am looking, even though this isn't, television, here we are on YouTube. Glenn and I are doing this podcast, which I just love, which is, an opportunity for Glenn and me to do something together on a regular basis and just, be creative in this way, to meet people that we don't know or that we know and get to know them better, to have these really interesting conversations that are just completely spontaneous and organic, even if there are a few key points that we talk about, like, we'd really like to hit on these points during the conversation. None of this is scripted. And so it's like, you know what? This is my TV show right now. This is the TV show that I said that I never wanted to do, but it's also engaging with an audience, that is out there. Like, that's the thing that I do miss, is being in a room with, hundreds of people and just like that energy, that just, is not feeding off it, because that sounds, kind of like it's a one-way street, but just that interconnectivity and that up-levelment, together in the same room.
The synergy that occurs.
There you go. Thank you. It's happening right now.
Yes.
And,
exactly.
and I am writing a book, because that's my end of year project for my advanced consciousness.
Right.
So I'm finally writing that book, which is great. And that takes me to volunteering. And I hear everything that you're saying about the volunteering. And the other thing that came to mind for me was that especially in Toronto, a few months before we moved, I started volunteering at 91.1 FM, which is the 24-hour jazz station in Toronto. And for me, even though it had nothing to do with my work, nothing, I'm not going to say nothing. It wasn't obviously, sort of like having to do with spiritual studies. Music is a huge part of my life, and it's a part of my life that feels like it's taken a back seat to working and building a business and being an entrepreneur in the food industry for almost 20 years, and then transitioning over to integrative nutrition health coaching, and from that now being in this world of spiritual and advanced consciousness studies. Music, which is just this like part of my soul that has taken this back seat. For me, volunteering at the radio station, at the jazz station, was so nurturing and so fulfilling because it fed a part of my soul that wasn't being fed in other areas of my work, so to speak. Does that make any sense to you?
Of course it does. Of course it does. And there you are. That's part of your not settling for an either or existence, but but making sure that there are opportunities for all of the facets of who you are to be nurtured. And you did it so beautifully and so intuitively that you didn't, it sounds like you didn't really even realize it until perhaps you were into it.
Yeah, it was easy. And I mean, the one of the most amazing things about volunteering at the station was like, it really is an incredible station, and it's a beautiful like the building itself is really laid out beautifully. It's probably changed, since we moved. But one of the things that they do is they have these very intimate live to air concerts that they record, sessions really, that they record and then play throughout the year a few times. But when they have the actual live to air session, it's like being in someone's large living room, and there are 50 to 70 seats probably in there. And the band, jazz, blues, little bit of folky elements, whatever, but they really focus on jazz, is right there. Like, you can touch them. They're playing live in your living room, and then they're interacting with the audience. They're answering questions at, in between songs.
Oh,
it is such an incredible experience. It is just, I don't even have the words to say how life affirming, how enlivening, how joyful, just how magical, how extraordinary for me it feels. And I would think for a lot of people in the same room, because a lot of times you have to pay to be in the room. But if you volunteer, or if you donate, during their fund drives, or if you win it as a prize, you get to be there. So there is this, there is this air of exclusivity, but it's also, they can only fit so many people in the room,
yes.
And part of it is, that's the intimacy, right?
Yes.
And so having had opportunity to see several groups and artists in that way, and to just be in that energy and that experience, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And then also being surrounded by so many musicians, because a lot of people who work there are musicians. I found my first jazz and blues piano teacher that way. I was thinking, how am I going to find someone? Like, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by musicians every day. Surely there's someone here who knows someone who trained classically and is now jazz and blues, and I could take some, piano lessons. And so I studied with someone for a few months before we moved. And one of the things that was so cool about that was her Yamaha piano was the exact same kind of Yamaha piano that I have. So when I went to her place, it just sounded like I was playing my own piano, which was so neat. And now, even though I've only had one lesson, now I'm studying online with Donia Oxford, and taking, blues piano lessons from her. So, that's still, I feel like I want to bump that up a little bit, but I also know that there's a lot of attention and energy being focused right now on this advanced consciousness studies, and doing this even, it's like, it's amazing. We're having the conversation. This is the content right now for our podcast. afterwards, there's still some editing and stuff involved, and then, getting it out into the world. Yet this feels easy. This is just, it's talking to people, it's hanging out with people, and there isn't a lot of, and now I'm going to use the word work, maybe like in a pejorative way. There isn't a lot of, let's say effort that has to go into, this coming out into the world. So
Yeah. Yes.
back to that sort of multifaceted, the different facets that you were just talking about, and the wholeness that you were talking about earlier, right? Like really, really, really embracing and embodying the wholeness of who and what we are.
Oh, yes.
Ways.
Oh, it's so wonderful. And as you were talking, just the last, when you were talking about work, effort, etc., the quote by Confucius came to mind. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that came to mind earlier for me. So thank you for bringing it up. Mahoney, do you want to chime in with anything?
Oh, you want me to put some effort in, or do you want me to?
Need a few minutes to work on it.
I have this image though of, because when you're talking about your earlier days of learning how you could help people, and you're kind of creating a new field, right? When you're doing that with younger women. The idea that came into my mind was that it takes a while to get clued into this, but people see themselves, I think, often as just like wherever they are in that moment, that's all they're capable of. That's all they can be, right? I've only done this much work at school. I've only got this diploma. I've only done this part-time job. I only know how to, all that kind of stuff. But if someone could take them aside and show them that, this is yourself in this moment, but who you actually are, you're this great long arc throughout your lifetime. And you actually have access to all of that. Like, I mean, it's a bit trippy, but the whole thing of there's no time, so your entire life is happening all at once, but you can't possibly experience it all at once. Time helps us break it up into little small manageable chunks, but going within, that's that whole thing of it's an opportunity to think maybe there are not only other people around me who can help me, but there's other aspects of myself that I'm not yet aware of, or I have forgotten because they were my younger self who was who knew that they were capable of something, but I've kind of let that go. I've forgotten that I used to know in my heart that I could do anything. Or when I'm 20 years hence, I will have fallen into this groove of like, I really enjoy gardening, for example, and I'm actually teaching younger people or teaching newcomers to the country or whatever how to do gardening so they can grow things, so they can like, it's things like that there are so many examples, but that concept of there's so much more to me, even as my current self, as limited as it may appear, it's just constantly expanding. So each moment of your life, it's like so rich with possibilities, but like, we don't think of ourselves as like, I'm a younger person, I'm a middle-aged person, I'm an older person. But we're all of those things during our life. And as Lassie and I are getting into this whole quantum stuff, it's like reminding us is like, right, it's all happening at the same time. So technically you can access it. You can download certain helpful bits of information or just reassurance from yourself in another moment or another parent moment, or if you want to call it the universe or God or whatever, it's still like all feeding into you all the time, but you've got so much available to you. So I don't know how to put that into words that they're not going to freak people out. If you're an 18-year-old hearing that, you're going to say, well, okay, hold on a second.
Yeah.
That sounds like nonsense. But because the other thing of is like, we're here to enjoy the experience of going through our learning, and growth, and setting these goals, and even breaking through barriers that, if you blunder through some situation of a relationship, or a bad work thing, or an event in your family, we still have, there's still so much. Oh, I'm losing my train of thought here. Sorry. It's just that it's so much available to us, but we can so easily just get wrapped up in like, this is the picture frame in front of me. This is all that's happening. When really we know what deep in our heart it isn't. But finding a way to kind of shift ourselves, like whether it's like putting an elastic band on your wrist and snapping it every time you say can't, or a limiting thought or whatever. Like, there's little ways and tricks, but the breathing thing for me is my best kind of, because I'm breathing all the time anyway, so I can just close my eyes for a second and go, okay, here, what is really going on? And
Well, one of the ways that I work with individuals is to bring it down to, what can you do today to expand your horizon, to be a bit more of who you know you are, etc. So I think for me, I'm a very practical individual. And as you say, it's pretty trippy to talk about quantum physics, but how can I bring it to bear on my life today, right now? That's an important issue for me. And it's an important issue when I work with another individual, to help them choose something that they can feel comfortably accountable for in the service of expanding their horizons and expanding their reach in the world. So that's how I would respond to what you've just said, Glenn. I don't know whether that is helpful, but
yeah, I think so. I don't want to put too much more into it, but I just think clearly you're tuned in a way when you're helping people. You're tuned into, you can see those patterns emerge of when people box themselves in. They put themselves into little boxes of what's available. So I appreciate that you've got this skill set of being able to like just notice, oh yeah, they maybe think that's going on, or oh, they're only capable of that, or they thought they were better at this, but what I'm getting from them is a lot more of, a different direction or whatever. But yeah, I wish I could listen to you write your note, what you're saying, but I mean, we're recording it, so I'll listen to what you've said again. I'm making time stamps, so I can go back and go, okay, what was she saying there?
You know what I just realized? Because I write notes the whole time so that I can remember stuff as well. And that's one of the ways that things land for me more. But there's also this way, YouTube, we can pull the transcript, the entire transcript of this conversation with the timestamps for like every single line.
Oh my gosh.
So,
That's
there's
brilliant.
never anything lost unless, this original recording is lost. Okay. So there were a couple of things that came up for me when I was listening to that conversation or exchange between you two. And Honeyman, I'm still not entirely sure that I agree with you when you say that we can't experience our life all at once. Because even a few sentences later, you said, now I can't remember what you said. Where's the transcript? That, it's all happening at the same time. I'm feeling like this is where, well, first of all, I guess experience would need to be defined, but
Mhm.
where awareness comes in, that, if we're going quantum, which is the direction to go in, because if we do not, then we are staying, asleep in this collective dream, according to Paul Levy, where we are subscribing to a worldview based on classical or Newtonian physics, that there is, what we see and experience through our five senses, that's real, and that's our life, that there's something outside of us that actually exists. Whereas in the quantum, it's all made up, as Rick Tamlin would say. It's all in our minds. It's all like we're creating it constantly. The universe is being created anew constantly. We're creating ourselves and our life experience constantly. But if all of this is possible, and all of it is infinite, and all of it is happening at the same time, and we're even thinking about whether or not we can experience it all at the same time, I'm thinking, and I think this is what we started talking about in class at one point on Thursday, we can, because otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And I think that maybe where we are, or at least for me, where I am in my own experience right now, is that I'm only aware of, the one that is the trajectory that is sort of the most obvious, or I mean, Paul Levy says it in the book too, the one that kind of like jumps into the driver's seat, the one that is most sort of complementary with my tendency of thought or my beliefs, which takes me to the other thing that popped up for me as you were talking, Honey Bunch, is that it makes me think of my foundational life belief. When you said that some people can't realize that they're more than what they are in that moment, that it can to be more than the experience that they're having in that moment. And Diane, I talked about this in the presentation that I made to the Women's Wisdom group a couple of months ago, is that when I finally realized what my life belief was, my foundational life belief was, at least for right now, it felt so empowering, because what came up for me was, there is always more. There is always more to lean into, to learn, to explore, to become, to expand into. There is always more happening than what I am experiencing or are aware of right now. And then the second part that came up, which I will credit Archie Tullis with again, because this is what he brought to the podcast when we interviewed him, is I'm always more than. So not only is there always more, that is available, but I am always more than whatever I am thinking, believing, experiencing, than what is happening in this moment. And for me, when that came together just a couple of months ago, that really opened me up. And so living my life from that belief with that foundation, being in this advanced consciousness studies class and shifting from believing and living from the limitation of a classical or Newtonian worldview to the infinitude of the quantum worldview, like you can do and be anything you want. And with people like Diane, who have this incredible skill set to help support you in that discovery, in that evolution, in that work of self-discovery, I mean, there's no reason to settle, no reason to keep blinders on, no reason to stay boxed into, well, like, this is how it's always been, or I can only do this so much, or, draw any kind of borders or limitations around yourself, which all come from, what we think and believe anyway. That to me is so exciting. So exciting.
Well, I'm going to present you with an alternate scenario, and
Okay.
that is, you're excited by it.
Yep.
There are many individuals who are terrified, intimidated, flummoxed
Yeah.
by that same concept or belief. In other words, if that's all true, where do I start?
Yeah.
If I really can be anything and do anything, seriously, I mean, how do I choose?
Mm-hmm.
And I have the answer.
Tell us.
Uh, it comes back to knowing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It comes back to your personal assessment. I could be a physicist. Yes, that's true. I mean, but is it an interest of mine? Do I have the skills? Do I have the interest to pursue it? Maybe not. So, conceptually, yes. But when I look at me and my preferences and the constellation of who I am, then I have a better handle on what do I really want to do, given that I can do anything. So it's an interesting combination of both of those realities. Yes, everything. And okay, now what do I choose?
Yeah. There's that yes and again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I'm even going to say that even in the excitement, that question can still be there often. What do I
Yes.
choose? What
Oh,
direction
yeah.
do I go in?
Oh,
Even in the
it,
excitement, for sure. So
it's,
I like what is very
and
grounding for me right now is I am in this class, which is
yes,
lasting a certain number of weeks. There is an
yes.
assignment that is due at the end of it. And there are assignments every single week, as we go. There's reading, we have papers that we're writing, and so and now there's the writing of the book, on a daily basis. So there is, this grounding. It's not just kind of
Right.
out there. And for me, I'm
Exactly.
very grateful
Yes.
for that, because just like you said, it can feel overwhelming and completely daunting. And that actually just reminded me when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, shortly after I moved to Toronto from Edmonton, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was so envious of my sister who knew she wanted to be a nurse in high school and went right into well, she took a year off and then she went into nursing school. And I'm like, what am I going to be when I grow up? What am I going to be? What am I going to do? What's my job going to be? What career am I going to step into? Because there was still this notion of the career, like this
The
is the
one
path,
right.
one career.
Yes.
And so my aunt, I can't remember exactly what happened, but my aunt, who is a doctor and is such an extraordinary being, and has been such an amazing influence, and just integral part of my life and of my evolution and expansion, a second mom to me for sure. She I think knew someone, whether it was a psychologist or someone who sort of trained, similarly the way that you are. But I ended up doing an assessment. I was supposed to read What Color Is Your Parachute? And then I spent hours at this office one day just doing this assessment, test after test after test, doing little manual dexterity skills and puzzle spatial things, whatever. It took hours. And then there was this big what is it, the answers or whatever, like the outcome
Reveal. Yeah.
reveal.
Yeah.
And basically what it revealed was that I had an aptitude for many different areas that were on the test. And so, I could be a successful musician. I could be a successful tradesperson. I could be a teacher. There were so many things. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help me at all.
Go.
I'm like 20 or something. Like, what am I supposed to do? So it was very interesting. And, on the from an ego standpoint, it's like, well, I scored high on everything, but like, what do I do? And so for me at that time, it wasn't helpful at all.
I understand.
At all. So.
No. Right. Exactly right. And that's where I come into the picture. I help people sort through the endless possibilities and help them get a handle on what really makes sense given all that I know about myself and the world of work and.
Mhm.
So that is the gist of what career coaching is about. And also the incredible gift of being listened to, in my case, listening deeply for what someone says and what's not said, what's between the lines.
Yep.
And using not only my 5 senses, but all of the senses, the intuitive senses. That's where the magic comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Diane, do you work one-on-one with individuals, or do you also work with groups?
I've done both. Really,
Okay.
I've done both. Yeah, right. And there are pluses and minuses. In a group setting, there's a synergy, and there's the listening to somebody else's story that reminds you of a piece of your own story that you've totally forgotten or suppressed.
Yeah.
And that can be extremely helpful. And of course, one-on-one, you're really laser focused on you and where you're at right now, and sorting out all of those pieces and rearranging them and putting them together in ways that have meaning for us right now.
Oh my gosh, this has been such an amazing conversation. I knew it would be. And I'm just so grateful. So much has come up. And even just like in this last little bit, every time I have a conversation, every time we have a conversation with someone, even today, stuff pops up I haven't thought about in a long time, or, something that I definitely want to put more attention on, comes up just because someone, our guest or Glenn or, the exchange, whatever, it just activates it, and it's
right.
just, I think that is so amazing. So neat. So I feel like it's probably a good time to, wrap things up. So before we do, Honey Bunch, is there anything else that you want to ask or chime in with?
Well, we didn't get to wine, and I don't want to spend.
Oh my God, that's right. All of that.
Oh my.
Okay, I'm not a drinker anymore. I haven't been since my mid-20s, so I can't. I would buy a bottle of wine because the label is cool and cute and pretty and whatever. But Glenn, he is quite the beer aficionado, and he also really enjoys learning about and experiencing wine. So, Honey Bunch, take it away.
Well, yeah, I am more of a partial to beers, but wine, it's one of those things where I don't know anything right now, but
That's not true.
I know I know what I like.
That's it. Stop right there.
Yay, we did it.
One of the misconceptions is that you have to know something about wine. No, you don't. All you have to know is what you enjoy. That's it. That's
it. We have a friend who I haven't seen in a long time, Ralph, who went off to do the training. Is it to be a what was it, to be a vintner or
vintner or a sommelier?
A vintner.
There are many designations within the wine world.
Right. So he's German. Grew up in Canada, but studied, I guess, in Niagara and somewhere else. But
Niagara.
Yeah, but and again, he's my go-to guy in terms of like the attitude of like, because when he criticizes food or wine, it just gets hilarious. Because
it's like Frasier and Niles off of Frasier.
Frasier. Yeah, he's so expressive about like the levels of disappointment of like, this meal, like why did they pair it with who are these fools, like it's just a meal and a drink. It's hilarious. Anyway,
that's not the way we do it. We love what's in our glass.
Right.
When we are hosting, we always present several wines, and enjoy some conversation about who likes which one and possibly why, but we don't get into the details. It's the enjoyment of the experience of food and wine, and the synergy and the chemistry that occurs when they're going together. And by the way, that happens with beer as well. And we love beer as well. So there you go.
Well,
That's another. We can have another podcast on that aspect: food, wine, and travel. Yes.
Right. Yeah, just, oh my gosh. But yes, but we are approaching 2 hours. So it probably would be a good time to, to kind of for today. But anyway, Diane, thank you so much. This has been such a joy, and and just so much amazing stuff coming out of this conversation. I look forward to listening to it again as I do the editing later on today. So before we go, we're now moving into the final segment of our show, which is the super rapid fire question round, which is facilitated by Glenn. And since you have listened to some of our podcasts, then you may already know that you will have a minute in which Glenn is going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, and we would just love for you to answer off the top of your head. No deep thought or anything, just automatically what comes to mind. It's just a fun, goofy way to get to know you a little bit more and keep things light, because they have been, almost the entire time during our conversation before we head off into our days. So Mahoney, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so get ready. Let's just take it down to 30 seconds. Ready and go.
Okay, which do you prefer, sweet or savory?
Savory.
Yoga or walking?
Walking.
Showers or baths?
Baths.
Rainbows or the northern lights?
Rainbows.
Teaching or learning?
Learning.
The 21st century or the 20th century?
21st.
Exercising the body or the mind?
Body.
Spring or autumn?
Spring.
Writing or reading?
Writing.
What is your favorite country to visit?
Bali.
Mali?
Bali.
Mali.
Bali is part of Indonesia. Bali.
Oh, Bali. Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Swearing or hitting a pillow?
Wearing.
Ding, 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 ding.
Okay.
We have a little extra time there just because of the Bali Molly clarification. Yay!
Okay.
And Diane, thank you. You took it seriously. It was like answer after answer after answer.
You're very good. You're almost as good as Archie. And
Archie
really prepped himself.
He had his eyes closed, like he had his hand on the buzzer, and he's like, okay, go. Oh. It was so funny. It's like, what? That's it. Anyway, Glenn, now why don't you tell Diane what she's won?
Okay. You have won 2 different things. One a bit longer, one a bit shorter. The first is a Matthew Fox book on creativity, which is kind of in the wheelhouse of what we're talking about.
Wonderful.
Where the divine and the human meet. And he's talking about when you're dealing with darkness, you're dealing with, struggle and so forth. He says, when darkness comes in the form of pain or disappointment, betrayal or discouragement, depression or failure, our natural tendency is to run. The Sufi mystic Hafiz put it well in the following poem. Love wants to reach out and manhandle us, break all our teacup talk of God. The beloved sometimes wants to do us a great favor, hold us upside down and shake all the nonsense out. But when we hear he is in such a playful, drunken mood, most everyone I know quickly packs their bags and hightails it out of town. Joy. Okay. I just,
Lovely.
the word drunken really jumped out at me there. And the second one is a quote by William James, which is, to miss the joy is to miss all.
Thank you.
There you go.
That's great. Wow. Thank you so much. It has been a joy.
Yay. All right. Well, before we say goodbye, Diane, if people want to find out more about you, get in touch with you, even have a coaching session with you, where would be the best place for them to get in touch?
Probably my email.
Okay.
DianeJS@hotmail.com.
Okay. All
That's
right. We will put that
and
up.
In my writing. Of course, there's the book, The Career Fitness Program, Exercising Your Options. It's available on Amazon.
Mhm.
And of course, our website, foodandwineaccess.com.
Fantastic. All right.
There you are.
So lots of different ways to get in touch with Diane.
Yes.
And so much to enjoy, you know, in everything that Diane brings to the world and just by who she is. So Diane, thank you again so much for being on our show today. It has been an absolute delight, a pleasure, and a joy. And I am so grateful for all of the stuff that kind of popped up for me and the conversation, just listening to you and Glenn. So thank you. So everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode. My name is Lassia. I have been here with Glenn, and our guest today has been Dr. Diane Sukiennik. I am so grateful for everyone who has tuned in, whether you are watching, whether you are listening, however you are engaging with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your love, your enthusiasm, your support. We will be back soon with another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lassia Kohut, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping make this podcast a reality. Today's special guest, Diane Sukiennik. Music, Vasco Lorenco, copyright 123rf.com. Background illustration, Sakma Sterke, copyright 123rf.com. For more information on this podcast and our Lassia Kohut Soul Excavator, please visit www.lassiakohut.com. If you like what you've heard, please like, subscribe, and or let us know by leaving a comment. Thanks for tuning into Who Do You Think You Are?